part 2 is finally here. Was it worth the 3-year wait? Before getting too deep into it, it was totally worth the wait. It completed the story in a very satisfying way, but still left the door open for some sequels, and we'll talk about what we like specifically about it. I'll start off, I really liked the effects. I could not tell the difference between the CGI and the practical in this. I'm really impressed with it. Blaine, what'd you think?
I thought the storytelling was just fantastic. It picked up right where it left off, and it just made the first one even better because it just completed the story for us. Whew. So good, so good.
My main thing with this is like this was the first time in like a long time I've been in a movie theater and I felt like happy and excited to be there.
No checking the time for me, nothing, none of that. And you know it's a great movie, not perfect, but a great movie when you come out of the theater feeling re-energized. There's just something special about this film.
I was just sitting there smiling. I don't do that in every movie, but I was sitting there smiling during this movie.
And it felt like so much longer than it was. Like I was like, oh, it's not that late yet.
Man, the pacing, it is way quicker than, it's almost 3 hours than what you would think from that, for real.
Yeah. And I felt like it moved more than the first movie. I feel like it was a quicker movie.
For sure.
Compared to the first one.
Even though I feel like a lot more with the story happened. Because there was some parts like, I guess like towards the second act where it was like, oh, we're about to get the credits. Like, oh, we're trucking. We're going, we're old, man.
I'm just happy there's a really great director on the scene doing modern sci-fi that harkens back to old 80s sci-fi, but it's not just nostalgia bait. It is a unique thing. And yes, it's based on, a pre-written story. It's based on a book series. It definitely has a modern feel to it. I don't know. It sounds pretentious, but it's a little smarter than some of the other films we're getting, especially some MCU films. And when you compare the effects and the way this looks to some of those sci-fi elements, it's just night and day.
Yeah, to your point, it's just mature storytelling. It's truly an art form with this director, clearly, because he's taking the story and delivering the story in his way and not trying to explain everything. He's simply just giving it to you the way he read the book, the way he saw the story, and he's doing it in such an artful, mature way.
I want to talk about the cinematography real quick. It's not the flashiest thing you've ever seen. It's all there to serve the story, and it's really engaging. The camera moves are really elegant. There's some, handheld stuff, but it really serves the story. When the action is on the ground, you feel like you're on the ground. There's these nice sweeping shots of Arrakis. It's really beautiful, but intense at the same time. And of course, Greg Fraser, his color palette and the way he frames a shot. Every image is imprinted on your brain.
I love how you can tell a story with changing lights and just scenes and just giving that just subtle piece to move the story along and kind of get to that end part with just establishing just normalcy almost.
I know this was the case with the first one. I believe it's the case with the second one, but it was shot digitally, digital IMAX, and then transferred to 35 millimeter film and then transferred back, which adds kind of, you're getting the best of both worlds with digital and analog. Digital is easier to work with, but then you get the film enhances the color a little bit, gives it a nice fine layer of grain, and gets you that final element and really makes the dunes shine.
There were some shots with like the visual effects that were they were just mind-blowing. Like there's worms. There was one where it just jumped out and you're just like, dang, you know what I'm talking about, right?
I know exactly what you're talking about. It's really, really hard to tell. Obviously, if you've seen part one, they've got the shields. Those are obviously CGI, but yeah, all the stuff with the worms, it's like they figured it out. They finally figured out how to mix practical and CGI effectively and properly, and they know how to shoot it. It was really excellent work.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Do you have any nitpicks? I have a couple.
There's a couple nitpicks, but they're story nitpicks. A couple things where it's like, how'd they get that? Wait, they're over here now? Nah, never mind. We're moving past it. I don't care.
It was more of just like, things were just kind of happening. I was kind of like, I feel like in the first one was a bit more like explained, because I think a good analogy for this movie is kind of like, I have the same opinion with the first and second Dunes as how I have with the two animated Spider-Man movies. like I think the first one, I think they're both really good, but I think the first one is a good just self-contained thing that happens, and then it sets up more. But then the second one is still really good, and it builds on everything that it does. But I think it tries to bite off more than it can chew, at times.
I'm gonna disagree with that. I'm gonna have
But
to
I also
disagree
haven't
with that.
read
I
the-
don't think the first one is contained.
Right.
But I also haven't read the books, so like
And
for the first
that's right,
40
yep.
minutes, I was kind of like, I don't like. I'm just like it felt a little bit draggy, or I wasn't getting it. But I was talking to Blaine after we saw it, and he's like, well, in the books, it makes a lot more sense. Which it did make sense when I was watching it, but I felt like there was something off with me. But that could just be my own personal.
Yeah, and that's one point to make is following the story in the book. They do a very good job of following the book, but it's taking a book to a movie. You miss points, and it's very hard to explain a book like Dune. There's a reason why there's been multiple attempts, and this is like the only one that has really been really good, because it's just an abstract, very thought-provoking movie. And one of the things that I struggled with, because I'm coming off reading the book and I'm very biased to the book, but I still love the movie. But the one point is Hollywood loves to take stoic characters and make them a little whiny, and that always annoys me. Is they just made Paul a little bit whinier than I remember him in the book. And another point with Johnny's character, I feel like they like to dramatize some things, and I feel like they dramatize that relationship a little bit more, like conflict. But that's just Hollywood doing Hollywood. But other than that, that was my main nitpicks, was how they just emphasized a couple things that didn't need to be emphasized.
I thought, was it Austin Butler? Fantastic. Every character's movie is like I could. Every even like little side characters, like the main dude of the religion cult guy, like he was awesome. I don't even know what his name was.
It's kind of incredible how these really big name actors blended into their roles so well. Like I'm not seeing Timothy Chalamet. I am seeing Paul Atreides. I'm not seeing Rebecca Ferguson. That is Jessica.
It brings in so many new people, and like it just all meshes so well. Like when you see a person at the end of the movie, you're like, I know what this man's deal is.
All right, well, let's go into our Dukes or Nukes. If you're unfamiliar, a Duke is a recommend, a Nuke is a don't recommend. Jack?
I will Duke this movie. I think I'm more on the. I really like this movie, but I think I'm at more of the fence than you guys were. But I did like it. I'm duking it. Good.
Okay. Blaine?
Definitely duking this movie. It held up the story for me, and I really enjoyed it.
I'm going to give it a Duke with an asterisk. If you're not a sci-fi fan, I know some, you're just going to hate it. If you didn't like the first part, you're not going to like this. But if you enjoyed the first part, you'll probably like this even more. And like Blaine said, it might even make the first part better for you. So yeah, Duke from me.
What'd you think of Dune 2? Write it down in the comments. Do you Duke or Nuke this movie? And you know what? Stick around, and we're going to be doing more movies. So many movies, 1 million movies. We're going to watch 1 million movies. Will's going to edit all of them. Will, 1 million movies.
Let's go.
Bye.
Jeez.